Hello, and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com. I'm a blind film critic. I'm a white blind film critic. And I'm going to talk about The Perfect Find on Netflix because this is my life. And this is what I do. It has audio description, which we're going to talk about on Netflix. So, let's get into The Perfect Find. I will be honest and say this is the kind of film that I didn't think I would be watching a whole lot of in 2023. And honestly, I've skipped over a couple of these that Netflix has made, these like random, like straight to Netflix rom-coms. I did go with this one because it stars Gabrielle Union, who I actually enjoy quite a bit. I thought she was really good earlier this year on Truth Be Told. I think she was really good last year in The Inspection. She's really been expanding herself dramatically. This is kind of a step in the other direction, but it's another project that has her in a leading role. So how can I begrudge her at that? I think she's been in a lot of romantic comedies that didn't really work for me. I wasn't really a big fan of Deliver Us from Eva, for example. So I think she's just done a couple things where I'm just like, I don't know if that. But the funny thing is, what I will say about Deliver Us from Eva, it has a title that actually is unique, it's cute, it's clever, and you remember it. This title, I'm going to forget tomorrow. I struggle already. Like, I struggled remembering The Perfect Find for the review. I kept having to, because I keep wanting to say it's like the perfect match. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, for some reason, The Perfect Find just doesn't feel like it sits right. And they make it work because within the context of the film, there's a thing that they're doing called The Perfect Find, but it still doesn't mean you have to name the movie after it. You know? I think you have to come up with something a little bit more quirky than that, something that stands out a little bit more. And that's, Gabrielle Union has been in some of those films before. 10 Things I Hate About You is catchy. Even Two Can Play That Game, Bring It On. There's just things that The Perfect Find sounds like it falls into a franchise of the perfect everything. You know what I'm saying? Like the perfect insert word here and walk away. The perfect holiday, the perfect Christmas, the perfect husband, the perfect wife, the perfect, it's just the perfect everything is just, there's probably so many films, the perfect or perfect, that are, they just kind of get lost together. So it'd be nice if this film had sort of a more recognizable title. It just popped so that we could remember it better. Truth Be Told, for example, that's a great title for a show. This is just kind of a standard romantic comedy. It's one where she gets to play, and ironically opens on the same weekend that Jennifer Lawrence is doing virtually a version of the same thing. It opened the same weekend that while her No Hard Feelings in theaters had her as the older woman to a younger guy. Here, she is the older woman to a younger guy. I think Gabrielle gets to play younger here because I didn't actually notice in the audio description. I don't remember every single part of the audio description, literally, but I don't remember if they aged her, if they talked about her age specifically. But they do talk about the age of her ex. When he shows up out of nowhere, her ex is played by D.B. Woodside, who, if you just saw The Night Agent, you saw D.B. Woodside. If you're a fan of Lucifer, you're a fan of D.B. Woodside. He's been around for a while. I knew who he was. I knew he was in this movie. And when he walks in, they label him as 40-something. So he's 53. He's a little bit older than Gabrielle. So if he's been de-aged, I feel like Gabrielle's been de-aged to 40-something. There's also some stuff within the context of the film that leads me to believe that Gabrielle is not playing her age. And I'll leave it at that. is I'm not here to spoil things. Um, so basically, the plot of the film revolves around the fact that Gabrielle Union works for another amazing actress, Gina Torres, who is playing sort of this boss ass, amazing, fierce, Devil Wears Prada level, uh, just, you know, like just Black Miranda Priestley, basically. I don't know. She was nicer than that, and that's too harsh of a spin, but kind of like that, where she's got that kind of like tenacity and fierceness behind her that is just it kind of just terrifies people because she's you feel like she could squash you, you know. But she has this nice working relationship with Gabrielle Union. That is until Gabrielle Union on a project ends up working with her son. Dun dun dun. And of course, her son is like 20 something. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not. This isn't like a cradle robbing thing where it's like Gabrielle Union falls in love with a high school student. No, he's a functioning adult in this. He actually sounds a lot older than he is, and one of the things I loved about the film was, for some reason, there's like a heavy focus on Greta Garbo, and these two both have a love of Greta Garbo, and I'm like, that's the most random thing ever, but I love it. I'm so here for it. I'm here for the fact that there are two people who, for all of a sudden, are really into like old school cinema and really love Greta Garbo. Like, what is going on? I feel like there are people that are going to watch this video who are like, I don't know who that is. I feel like if I went out to my college students, I work at a college, I feel like if I went to them and was like, do you know who Greta Garbo is? I could get an entire room of students and everybody would be like, no, I don't know who that is. So the fact that they're selling this as being like there's a 20-something, aspiring director photographer, that is a huge fan of Greta Garbo, I think is amazing. I think it's great. And I love that Gabrielle Union is obsessed with Greta Garbo as well. It's this weird thing that they bond over. And romantic comedies have that. You know, they always have this weird thing that people bond over. And I love that it's Greta Garbo in this film. It's so random. And it's like, it might be my favorite thing about the movie. Because you could go for pretty much anything. You know, you could be like, oh my God, do you love this kind of food? I love this kind of food. Oh my God, you love dancing? I love dancing. You know, I mean, like, there have been so many other things where it's been so much more obvious what people love, but this is really specific. It's like, do you love films made right around the late 1920s that star Greta Garbo? Oh my God, I do. Do you? It's, oh, great. It's great. Anyway, so... the film is kind of about their relationship and how they have to keep it a secret because she works for his mom, and his mom has made it like abundantly clear that, yes, I know my son is handsome, but stay the fuck away. Keep your crusty ass away from my son. And Gina Torres she's great in this. Both her and Gabrielle Union they're both great. They're doing a lot of what they do in every other film, but they're just doing a really good job of it here. They've mastered these characters, I think. There's a lot of what Gina does on here that remind me of a couple times where she's had to like lay down the law on 911 Lone Star. 911 Lone Star. And it's just a good role for her. The supporting cast is there. I mean, there's a supporting cast, but aside from those three characters, I mean, you don't really need to know who they are. There's nobody who really, like, affects the film. There are people who just kind of float in and out. The film doesn't really do a great job of setting up, like, a BFF character for Gabrielle Union. She just kind of seems to float as an island. She has friends. Like, she runs into them, and she's friendly with people. But there isn't, like, a strong BFF character for her. Which I feel like the film kind of lacks and might have been nice to have. There's characters that have potential to do that, they just don't develop them well enough. And same thing for, I want to say his name is Eric. we're gonna go with Eric. Same thing with Eric. He just kind of floats along as an island. So the film really does become about their relationship because they don't really interact with anybody else. Even Gabrielle Union with her ex, he's not really in that much of the movie. And even Eric has an ex that's not really in that much of the movie. So she just pops in and she's like, "Hey, what's up? I'm here. I'm gonna leave now." And like it reminds Gabrielle Union that he has an ex, and it gives her something to be mad about, because otherwise there would be no trials and tribulations through this movie. It's charming. It's fine. It's the kind of thing that Netflix puts straight to streaming. Could it have gone to theaters? Sure. Would it have done well? I don't know. It would have been riding entirely off of Gabrielle's name. Gina is not really known as being a theatrical star. Gabrielle has had some stuff released to theaters recently that has starred her. She had Breaking In just a couple of years ago that was riding entirely off of her name that I thought did fairly well. We just don't release romantic comedies to theaters anymore, which is kind of a shame, because it's like we've made date night this thing where everybody has to like invite you back to their house. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody now has to Netflix and chill. You can't just go out to a rom-com in theaters, because largely they're not being released in theaters. So, I guess people are finding other things to do on date night other than take them to the latest romantic comedy. Or they hope that one of the maybe 5 romantic comedies that are still getting theatrical releases every year happens to be timed with the date that they need at the time. So I think we could probably put some more into theaters. You want everybody to come back to theaters. Well, you have like an entire genre that you have like just kicked out of theaters. Like you've been like, no rom-coms. But like you're still releasing horror films into theaters, and it's like, well, I mean, there's an entire streaming service devoted to the horror films. People could just stay home and watch Shudder. So I don't know. It's very weird. So maybe put more rom-coms into theaters, especially ones for like diverse audiences, and give them an opportunity. Yeah, this is a black film. It's a film with a black cast. That's what it is. I put this to an audio description forum because I wanted to be able to talk about things, and I'm a white critic, and the thing is that there are not a lot of blind film critics out there, and to find one that's specifically black and can talk about it from the black perspective, if it's not happening, then it doesn't happen ever, and there aren't conversations that we could be having. So I'm going to try to have some conversations the best way that I possibly can. The first thing I want to talk about is this audio description kind of reminded me of the fact that we do a lot of defaulting in audio description. And it's not necessarily that this audio description has done something wrong. It's that no one else does this, which makes it stand out a little bit more. And if the situation was reversed, it would not be done. I don't hear a lot of predominantly white cast films where there are no black people or Latinos or Asians or whatever. I don't hear them constantly reminding me that everybody in the film is white. But in this film, which is predominantly black cast, to the point where, I mean, its most recognizable stars, I think everybody knows are black. Gabrielle Union has been acting since her first credited role was in Family Matters. So that's how long she's been acting. If you don't know Gabrielle Union is black by now, I don't know. I don't know how to help you. But she's been in enough things over the course of over 30 years that I feel like somebody should have figured out her race by now. And around her, they've populated the film with a structure that suggests pretty easily this is a black film. And it's either that or else it would be extremely problematic. Because there are a lot of supporting characters who use a word I can't use. So don't make me. You know what the word is. They use it and they drop it a lot in slang while talking to each other. That does not happen in other films. If it does, it becomes problematic. If I were to say that, it would be problematic. When other people say it, it's part of the culture of that film and the people represented within. It's a big hint as to what the predominant cast is. So I didn't need a whole lot of reminding that literally everybody on screen was black. But the audio description felt the need to tell me every time somebody was black. Even characters that don't really speak. There's a scene where they're doing a shoot and they're shooting black models. Okay. That's fine. I guess that's, some extra characters that don't speak, that they're just letting me know that there's more black people in this. When we first see D.B. Woodside's character introduced, it immediately reminds us that he's black. Every character is introduced as black. And what happens is that we get in so many other films, we don't get black mentioned unless the character is black. It's this weird thing where we default, like white is default. And if you're not white, then you get listed. Then we're told that you are East Asian or Latino or whatever, then we get your description as to, or we get sort of like a vague description by describing the literal tone of your skin. I've seen that happen too, where instead of trying to guess what somebody's ethnicity is, they just kind of reference that the skin color is darker, which isn't really helpful when you're trying to figure out if somebody is black or Latino. And at the same time, often it doesn't matter what the race of somebody is, because like sometimes these characters that come and go, and there was nothing about the interaction that would have necessarily required us to know that about them, but we've made it the point to make some statement about it. This is a really weird thing that we get into with audio description, which is why I wanted to talk about it. And I did put it to a room full of people who gave me 17 different answers. So this is, I'm treading into this very lightly, because I'm trying to tread into this the best way possible. It's not necessarily that the audio description for this film has done something wrong. It's that we need to think about this moving forward for all audio description. What is it that we're doing? There is that idea of, yes, it would be nice to know the audio, to know everybody, to know the representation of every actor in the film. It's just not what happens. So we either need to start identifying white actors in films and talking about their skin color or shade of skin color or lack of color, however you want to put that. Or when we have a black film where black has become the default, because essentially that's what that is here. The cast is predominantly black, which should mean the black is default. So when we flipped it around and then we still make a point of pointing out every black character in the thing, it's a bizarre choice. Because then in this cast, the couple of times where somebody wasn't given a race made me think that that person was white, because they went out of their way to name every other black character in the film. So there's a red carpet sequence where somebody has an escort. For example, that escort is not given a race. And it's so pervasive throughout the rest of the film with the amount of characters that are given racial backgrounds that it kind of stood out to me, and it made me think, wait a minute, is that character white? Are we defaulting now back into, if I don't tell you, assume it's white? It's and that's why I wanted to have this conversation. It's something that we're doing in films, and it's sending the wrong message. It's sending the wrong message to kids. They're still hearing it. They're still showing up to these films. They're still listening, and they're realizing the fact that it's being pointed out when someone is black. It's not being pointed out when somebody is white. And it's very exclusionary, ultimately, at the end, because it's like saying, oh, look over there. Look at that thing. This thing is different in some way, when there's really nothing different. There's nothing that sets them apart. There's no oddity about it. It just is, some people are taller, some people are shorter, some people are fatter, some people are skinnier. Some people, I have a beard, some people don't have beards. We just have to start looking at things like that. Some people are different shades of skin tone. And when you stop talking about one particular skin tone and continue to talk about all of the others, it kind of makes it seem like the other ones have done something, odd to warrant being constantly pointed out. So there's that one thing. Number two, how do I tackle the fact that I'm pretty sure that this predominantly black cast is narrated by probably somebody who is not representative of that cast? There's no really good way to talk about this, because then we're talking about sounds black, which is tough. However, I have talked to black blind people before who really appreciate when they watch something that is a predominantly black cast, whether it's a TV show or a movie, and they can tell that the narrator is also from that world. And it makes it easier in narrating the culture for them. So I don't think that's what happened here. I can't prove it because it's just a voice. But I would be willing to place a bet that is not what happened here. He reminded me a lot of Dan Levy from Schitt's Creek. And that was kind of the vibe that I got. Delightful person, and I would love to hear his voice on other things. Especially, I thought actually he'd be really great for kids' films. I think he's weird for a rom-com anyway. Like, he's very upbeat and perky, and there's some sensuality and some sex scenes type stuff. It's not like hardcore sex, but it's like there's some stuff. And I don't know that his kind of Blues Cluesy upbeat voice was necessarily what the film needed anyway. I probably would have gone a little bit more of like a 50 Shades tone for this. I don't know that I would have chosen him for this type of film. I think he'd be great for comedies, like just kind of random, goofy comedies, not rom-coms, but just straight comedies. Maybe like The Hangover, or also kids films. That's where I think this guy, like, his sweet spot is. But it's a weird juxtaposition having him in this film. It felt out of place the whole time. And I know it's important to people. It doesn't seem to be important to everybody, because we all want to play that. We all don't want to play that game of sounds like. Because the reality is that's not true. There are plenty of people who are and don't sound like. So it gets very nebulous in talking about that. But I mentioned it just to get that out there into the world. Please think about it. Representation matters to people. They like to be represented. And when you are a minority and there maybe are not that many narrators like you out there in the world, it's nice to be able to have a project like this where you can remind people that there are narrators who work in this position, and encourage other people to come into this position who perhaps would not otherwise. That they feel like that this is something that they can achieve. Representation often opens up doors for other people, which is why it's important. It's not just some silly little thing where it's like personal preference. Sometimes it really does say to somebody who's young and coming up in the world, this is something that you can do, this is something that you can be, because they see somebody else who has done it and who has achieved it. That's the value in breaking through glass ceilings. That's the value of holding a door open, is that it really can change somebody's life when they don't see a path, and suddenly they do. So anyway, I'm glad we had this conversation. I hope I did it in the best way possible. I mostly found this one to be charming. I don't think it's a top tier rom-com for me. It's not my favorite Gabrielle Union film, but it was fine. I'm gonna give The Perfect Find a B-. So, and I also don't think it's, if somebody came into this review and they're like, oh, it's a black film. First of all, don't do that. Please don't be that person. Watch films with people who don't look like you. It's so much better. Your life will be so much more rewarding if you watch films with people who don't look like you. And this film is really it's really trying to hit mainstream as much as humanly possible. This is as relatable as it can be. So I think this film could have been made with any racial skin tone you want. This film could have gone to. The plot of the film is adorable, no matter what. Even with the May-December romance type situation there, it still is a very nice film about love. And sometimes you find it in the weirdest places. It still has a shitty title, but I can't change that. This is one of the worst titles of the year. So I can't do anything about that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I love to have conversations about audio description and how can we make it better and what is it that we need to do. So please subscribe so that I can keep talking about it. I have a website, MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can go to Twitter or Instagram and follow me at MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what it's audio description, where you can watch it. And you can go to the ADNA.org. That's the ADNA.org. And it will let you know who's working on the narration for your favorite films and television series. That's it for me today. I will review something else for you guys and see you on the other side.